now.
Good evening and welcome to the August 12th meeting of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to turn off any wireless communication devices to avoid interfering with our meeting. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to turn off their wireless communication. Also, we will be using Zoom interpretation services this evening. Please listen to the following announcement regarding the interpretation service during tonight's meeting.
Interpreting services, servicios de interpretación. Simultaneous interpretation is available in Spanish. La interpretación simultánea está disponible en español. On a computer, at the bottom of the screen will be an interpretation globe. Click that globe and then select Spanish. En una computadora, en la parte baja de la pantalla habrá un globo de interpretación. Haga clic en ese globo y seleccione Spanish. On a mobile device, at the bottom of the screen, tap the ellipsis icon on the bottom right. 3 dots. Tap Language Interpretation. Tap Spanish. En un dispositivo móvil, en la parte baja de la pantalla, toca el icono de elipses en la parte baja de la derecha. 3 puntos. Toque Language Interpretation. Toque Spanish. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. I would like to ask everyone also to mute their microphones to avoid any technical interference with the meeting. This meeting is being recorded for those who cannot observe us today. And information on how to view this and other meetings of the board will be posted on our board webpage. Board Member Mickens Murray, would you please lead us in the board prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, thank you. Oh God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Board Member Mickens Murray. Board members, please unmute your microphones for the roll call. Ms. Berkeley, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Adam Stafford,
Present.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Here.
Ms. Boozer Strother,
Here.
Mr. Burrows.
Here.
Mr. Saran Ruiz,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mrs. Mickens Murray. I'm sorry, you were muted. I just didn't hear you. Mrs. Mickens Murray.
Present.
Mr. Montero.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Murray. Mrs. Queen.
Board Member Queen present.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Valentine.
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Present.
Dr. Miller.
Present.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if you would like, I will turn the chair over to you.
Thank you. I would also ask all board members to turn your videos on as a courtesy to our public. We want to make sure the public recognizes who you are and that you are actually in attendance. Thank you. I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda for August 12th, 2021 board meeting.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda for our meeting on Tuesday.
Second.
It has been moved in second that we adopt the agenda for August 12th, 2021. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, may I have all the ayes?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries to adopt the agenda for August 12th, 2021. We will now move into the approval of board meeting minutes for the July 28th, 2021 board meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I
I'd
move
like
that
to
we,
make a comment. There were some corrections. Ms. Berkeley, I sent them to Ms. Berkeley. Were they made?
They were made and posted.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
motion to approve the meeting minutes for July 28th.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved in second to approve the minutes for July board meeting minutes for July 28th, 2020. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. At this point, the report of the chair, I'm going to have to, I'm just kind of full right now because first of all, I apologize to the public for our tardiness in starting and leaving our executive session, and which was quite a hearty one. With that being said, there were some clarifications made relative to the vote on the acceptance of the executive committee vote at our last meeting. And I asked for parliamentarian clarification on what that vote meant. And today we have a parliamentarian here, Mr. Bill Shelton, who has been introduced to our board members. And Mr. Shelton, I think later I will ask you to give a comment on that, unless you want to do it now during my comments.
Whatever your preference is.
I'd like for you to go on and give it now.
I think the bylaws, the school's bylaws, the board's bylaws mention the necessity to vote. I think the word, using the word vote is a misnomer in this case. It's just a ministerial function. Roberts requires that if something happens in closed session, that a summary be placed on the record in public. Roberts requires it, and the bylaws from the school board require it. The Maryland Open Meetings Act require. So most everything I know requires that you put a summary on the record. It's not, permissive. So you don't need to vote again to approve what you've already done. You just need to put a summary of what you've done on the record. Is that sufficient clarification?
For me, it is, but if there are any questions, any board members have any questions about that? So in essence, are we to understand that when we take the vote, and you just said we don't need to, but according to our bylaws, it does say vote to agree or approve. Well, it's not the word approve, really, to confirm that certain items had been discussed in executive session. It does not change the vote that was taken in executive session. Am I correct?
You're absolutely right, ma'am. Again, I read the bylaws simply to say that you've got to put a summary. There's another provision of the bylaws that says that the board shall indicate on a public record what they did. And as I indicated, shall it's mandatory. You don't have an option. So if you don't do it, you just fail to do something that the bylaws say you shall do.
Thank you. I will, well, I see board member hands going up. This is, I wanted to incorporate Mr. Our parliamentarian into this is my part for comments. And at this point, I choose not to recognize any questions relative to my comments at this point in time. So with that being said, it's just very interesting that we had several discussions during the executive session. And one is relative to our legal services for legal counsel, which we still do not have and is still pending. And hopefully that the board members will be able to collaborate in the near future to bring resolution to the hiring of a legal counsel. In the meantime, we do have the parliamentarian available to help us conduct our meetings in an orderly, professional, and official manner. With that being said, I close my remarks. I saw Board Member Queen and Board Member Ahmed's hands. I will recognize you at this point, Board Member Queen.
Thank you so very much. I just have a question. I understand what the parliamentary, Mr. Shelton has stated. Mr. Shelton has just stated, but when we vote in the beginning, we vote on the agenda. It was part of the agenda. Until we start changing our agenda, would that not be not following the rules of our agenda, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Well, again, I think it's a poor choice of words on the agenda. But the other thing is, keep in mind, the agenda is just a suggested format. You guys can follow any agenda you want, just so long as it includes the things that parliamentary procedure would require. And parliamentary procedure doesn't require that. It's just something that you guys stuck in your agenda. And again, I think it's just poorly worded, because the word vote to most people indicates that you got some discretion in the matter. You don't have any discretion in the matter. You've got to put a summary of what you did in closed meeting on the record. You got to do that by Robert's rules. You got to do it by your rules. You got to do it by the Maryland Open Meetings Act. There's probably a bunch of stuff that requires you to do that. It's just commonly done.
Board member,
I appreciate it, but as this stated, it does stay on our agenda to vote. It's been something that has been done for years. It's been something that has been Godfather for years. So until we start changing our Godfather agenda, I respect your opinion, but until we change that, we need to just move on.
Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Shelton, I just wanted to ask you, your perspective of this is just from the parliamentary procedures, right? Did you check the law to see what the law says regarding this, or is it specifically just to Robert's rules?
No, it's not just to Robert's rules. When I speak of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, that's a statutory authority. And the statute requires that when something happens in closed session, you put a summary of that on a record. And there've been all kinds of attorney general opinions on this. It's not a new issue. It comes up all the time. But the law is quite clear. Now, well, let me say this. Most of you know I have a law degree. I'm not in a position to give you legal advice because you haven't hired me for that. But I will say this. My research of the law leads me to believe that there's legal authority, there's parliamentary procedure authority. Your own bylaws require that a summary be placed on the record, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. I do agree with the summary aspect. I think, though, the motion to approve actions in executive session might be in state law somewhere. There's something of that. If I find it, I'll send that over to you, because I feel like there is something in state law that speaks to this, and I don't want us to be missing information as this is going on. So I just wanted to put that there, that I think that there's something in state law.
And if you find it, I would appreciate you sending it to me, and I will certainly stand corrected.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Last question, Board Member Burrows, and we will move forward with this agenda.
Thank you. I just want to state.
Excuse me for a minute, Board Member Burrows, would you, as I have asked all board members as a courtesy, to turn your videos on. I just heard a comment about our public not being able to be seen, and the public wants to see us. So again, all board members, turn your videos on, please, including our student.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, you do now. I'm
Thank
just
you.
waiting for all the board members to be
Okay, if I can
respectful
just,
of my request.
if I can just reclaim my time. I think there's a misunderstanding in this conversation, a big misunderstanding. The board did not vote to confirm the actions taken that took place in executive session because the law was attempted to be violated. I have the law in front of me and I'll read it verbatim. It's HB 1107. If you look at page 17 of the document, it makes it very clear that except otherwise provided, paragraph 2 of this subsection, the affirmative vote of the members of the county board for a passage of a motion by the county board shall be 8 members when the student board member is voting, or 7 members when the student board member is not voting. And so the law is very clear. It is explicit. There's no need to mince words about it. We have several experienced board members who have been here for a number of years, 5 years or more. And we all know this. And so that's what this is about. It has very little to do with the procedural or parliamentary procedure debate around, do we need to confirm items or not? The question is, are we going to follow the law or not? And the law is clear. And I will be happy to send this to you, Mr. Parliamentarian. I know you're just been thrown into this recently, but it is crystal clear that it takes 8 votes when the student board member is voting to pass a motion, and 7 votes when the student board member is not voting. Thank you.
With that, any comments? I don't see any additional hands. With that, we will move forward with a moment of silence. Colleagues, at this time, I ask that you, all of you, join me in honoring the memory of the following Prince George's County Public Schools students, staff, and family members with a moment of silence. George Murphy, father of Dr. Christy Murphy, Chief of Human Resources. Curtis Walker, Sr., father-in-law of Amber Wilson, Administrative Assistant, Office of the CEO. Jawan L. Brown, custodian, Coral Rice Elementary School. Alan McDonald, teacher, High Point High School. Rosa Whitaker, teacher, William Wirt Middle School. Please continue to keep these families in your thoughts and prayers. Please check our webpage for information about upcoming board meetings. And the next public meetings of the board will be held Thursday, September 2nd, 2020, and it will be a board work session. Thursday, September 9th, will be our CIP public hearing. And Thursday, September 23rd, another regular board meeting. Now we will move to item 2.8, the report of the Chief Executive Officer. Dr. Golson, if you would please present your report.
Thank you. Good evening. With less than 1 month away from the first week of school, our main focus continues to be health and safety as we return to in-person learning. Yesterday, we announced waitlist openings for the temporary virtual learning program serving students in kindergarten through 6th grade. And there are also a limited number of seats available in the online campus for 7th through 12th grade students. The virtual program gives families an option to continue learning from home until students under the age of 12 are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. Although the original deadline for selecting virtual learning programs was in June, given the rise of the Delta variant, many families have recently expressed an interest in virtual learning. We hear the concerns of our families, and we're making every effort to accommodate as many students as possible. Adding students is dependent on hiring additional staff, which may be challenging so close to the start of the new school year. But again, we will do our very best. We will hold a contactless back to school event next Saturday, August 21st at High Point High School, Charles Herbert Flowers High School, and Oxon Hill High School. The back to school drive and dash will take place from 9 a.m. to noon. Each site will have a backpack giveaway while supplies last. Today is the last day to share input on how Prince George's County Public Schools should use federal COVID-19 emergency funds. The survey is on the PGCPS website at www.pgcps.org. These funds will help schools return safely to in-person instruction and address the academic, social, and emotional impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on students, families, and staff. It is National Immunization Awareness Month, and we are partnering with the Prince George's County Health Department to provide ongoing opportunities for parents, families, and staff to receive COVID-19 vaccinations. The health department will host clinics at several school sites for students to receive their vaccinations such as measles, polio, and chickenpox, which are required for public school students by the state of Maryland. Look for details on our website and a special presentation at the end of our remarks. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Golson. We will now move to our public comments. Let's see. To the speakers, you have been registered to speak in a public forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. You must speak on the topic for which you have been registered. All registered speakers will have 3 minutes to provide comments. At the sound of the buzzer, speakers may complete that sentence only. Registered speakers may not relinquish any or part of their speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue, your comments will be muted and you may be asked to leave the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, principal, CEO, deputy superintendent. Your adherence to the guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. Our first Before we go to our first registered speaker, Ms. Berkeley, did we clear up the issue in terms of being able to see the speakers and them being able to come back in? Has that been cleared up?
There was no issue. They won't be able to be viewed, but they will be able to be heard. We cannot promote them as panelists without having to keep them as panelists. It's not an issue, but they won't be able to be viewed at this time.
Thank you. First, registered public, and we have 15 people who have signed up. The first speaker is Magali Roman Salas, Adelphi Hills Community Association. Conduct of board members.
Good evening, Dr. Miller and board members. I am the president of the Adelphi Hills Community Association, an organization within Board District 3. I am here to ask that you deeply reflect on the trust that the residents of Prince George's County have placed on you, thinking that you consistently would choose to invest your time and effort only in matters that increase the value of the education offered to our children. A recent example of how that public trust has been validated is the manner in which you tackled aging school buildings through the Alternative Construction Finance Plan. You put in motion the construction and replacement of 6 schools to be delivered by 2023. Back in 2018, our association advocated before you many times, protesting the initial proposed location of one of those schools, but that is in the past. And now our public school system is the first in the nation to use alternative construction finance. But the continued conversation about allegations of unethical conduct by some board members and the cyberbullying of our board representative will tear down the trailblazing trend that you just began. The recent allegations and the cyberbullying sadly take us back to the dysfunctional work environment that has clouded the board's work under previous administrations. This conversation perpetuates the unflattering reputation that our school system has in comparison to neighboring school systems, and the effect is very real. As an example, I will share a personal story. In August 2019, my daughter, who resides in Ward District 1, lost a battle with the father of her 2 boys who lives in Montgomery County concerning which school the system the boys would attend. Without evidence, a Montgomery County judge stated, and I quote in part, "I have spent a lot of time in Beltsville and I have some feel for the schools and it's a mixed bag. I do think that the public schools in Montgomery County are in general better." This decision has had an irreversible effect on my grandchildren. Intellectually, one may agree with the judge, but this lack of appreciation for our school system hits like a ton of bricks when it touches you up close and personal. The quality of your leadership is critical to the success of the work of this board. Your ability to do your jobs as colleagues and in a manner that is beyond reproach is essential to lift up the prestige of our school system. I ask you to stop, to reflect, and then to do the next right thing.
Thank
for your
you.
consideration.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Gerard Tyler. Mr. Tyler's not here.
Mr. Tyler's not here. We can move on to Ms. Pope.
Ms. Amity Pope, Individual Ethics Report.
Good evening, members of the board. On Monday, August 2nd, there was a protest of sorts that members of the Divine Nine received calls to attend. Yet the message that was sent, and which I received as a member, was to come and show my support for students. When I arrived, I was dismayed because people had reasons for why they were there, but none of their statements began with supporting the students. What was brought up was the fact that the ethics report had concluded and that the results of this ethics report was to take a vote for the removal of those listed in the report, the elected members. Further, I learned that the ethics report was not made public. And to this day, I have not received any notification from the board about the findings of this report. This is frustrating for me as a homeowner and super voter in this county. Based on the statement of the aforementioned statement that I just said, an action such as moving to vote for the removal of elected school board members disenfranchises not only my vote as a homeowner and the votes of some 200, 300,000 some odd individual voters. You know, I know the last president this country had makes it impossible for many to believe that democracy is still in order. And this is not democracy. My vote matters, and the some odd 200, 300,000 voters that voted for each of these board members that were elected to hold office matters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Ms. Jana Parker, individual, the school board.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So first off, I just wanted to encourage the school board to focus on the students. I just want to reiterate that the allegations in the ethics report are, just that, allegations, and that many of the school board members do not agree with these allegations. These allegations, again, have not been released to the public. And it's extremely disconcerting that we have appointed school board members and some elected officials calling for the removal of seven or so elected school board members based on an ethics report that is still not available to the public. And that the call for their removal would disenfranchise over 200,000 Prince George's County voters, many of whom are people of color, Black and brown people, Black and brown constituents, many super voters who came out to vote for these people. I also find it extremely concerning that people from certain districts are calling for the removal of the duly elected school board members from other districts. And that is extremely disheartening and disconcerting. Not to mention that the potential financial repercussions for our school system and the county, if and when the impacted parties sue the system for the allegations, our county and the residents could be stuck with other litigation, bills from litigation, and a possible settlement. The taxpayers of Prince George's County are tired of paying for the legal battles brought on by the misstep of our appointed officials or even some elected. We voted for these people, let them do their job. And I honestly feel even more concerned, while definitely all respect to the parliamentarian and any professional licenses that he carries, I'm really concerned that the board still doesn't have a lawyer and is essentially trying to utilize the parliamentarian as their lawyer in a roundabout way. That is extremely disconcerting. And I don't understand why you guys can't get that together. And then finally, just to clarify something, the reputation of Prince George's County's public schools, unfortunately, is not related specifically to the behaviors of the school board members and has been going on for years and has tarnished our school system, which is a great school system. But a lot of that has nothing to do specifically with the school board members. And I would dare say it doesn't have anything to do with the work that has been done on the administration side. We have thousands of good teachers, thousands of hundreds of good administrators, and everyone supports us. And the continuation of essentially bashing Prince George's County Public Schools is not specifically something that is because of our school board or because of the hard work done by the administration, but by people who feed off of that for our school system. And I remind the people that are on this call who bring that up to just do your background work. If people in Montgomery County are talking about Prince George's Public Schools, they're not talking from a basis of knowing what's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Next is Crystal Oriata.
Hello, thank you for the space to allow for the residents to speak. I am really disheartened by what I've been witnessing. And I think that every single person here, appointed or elected, came into this position because they care about students and care about doing what's best for this county. And I know that sometimes when we disagree, that can lead to pulling out the worst in people's character and behavior. And when we had the last president of the United States, Donald Trump, why I felt Pence was more dangerous is because he had the ability to wrap up horrible behavior in good wrapping paper. And what I see now is pulling away and destroying democracy but doing it in a way that is easily digestible to people that might not know what's actually happening. And we have to have the ability to disagree and to lose power. These are not regimes. We make our decisions at the ballot box. And so many of us that are progressive organizers and activists have lost many times, but we never went to destroy the fabric of the process or democracy to get our way. We organized more and we got people elected. And so we're just asking for people to be able to disagree. And then if you want to see a change, then organize and elect new representation. But we, the voters, the 200,000 plus voters, have done that. And so I'm just asking for everyone. I know tempers are high and so many things have happened, but asking for people to just dig into what's right and what's moral and what's good and the reasons why everyone took this position, and to lose with dignity and grace, because you represent your legacy and we have to do better. We have to do better, no matter what side of the aisle we stand on. Just to remember that, because that's what's happening here. A disagreement is allowing people to lose sight of their character and their morals, and to do things and say things that they just know are not true. And we could do better than that. And I just ask everyone to disagree with grace, to lose with grace, and to hold on to your integrity no matter what, even in trying times. And just asking for everyone to be centered in that. And to hopefully we can come together to do what's right for the board. Because there's some board members that have actually put forward policy and legislation and budget amendments, and some that have done none of those things for the years that they have sat in the chairs that they're in. And so we have to get to the actual work. And I would love to see every single board member introduce actual policies, actual budget amendments that see our educators elevated and paid fairly, that see tutoring programs. Please move with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Dr. Donna Christie, PGCEA Policy Priorities.
Good evening. Good evening, esteemed members of the Prince George's County School Board. I am excited to reintroduce myself to you as Dr. Donna Christie, PGCEA President. I have spent the past week with our association's leaders, and I would like to take this opportunity to share with you the issues that they have identified as priority issues and concerns for your primary frontline employees, your educators. First and foremost, they are concerned about student and educator safety, health, and wellness. They are very anxious about the system's ability to implement CDC and health department guidance to keep everyone safe. This anxiety further impacts our mental wellness, which in turn weakens our physical health. Next, they are concerned about ever expanding workloads and responsibilities without compensation. To consider them essential employees without providing compensation that reflects that has left them feeling disrespected and unappreciated. Now, the question has been asked as to how we help students recover learning losses caused by inequities in access to resources through the pandemic. Their response is to lower class sizes to increase individualized attention, reduce testing to the minimum legal requirements to increase instructional time, and for administrators to reduce meetings and take on more of the paperwork so that educators can focus their time and energy on their work, providing instruction, support, and therapeutic services to the students. Finally, they ask that you address the problem of administrator bullying, harassment, and retaliation. Address those administrators that have unhealthy relationships with power and control, and facilitate an administrative culture that understands that the roles and responsibilities of everyone working outside of the classroom is to support what goes on inside the classroom. Our educators are committed to providing the best educational experience they can for their students. We ask that you provide the best professional experience you can for our educators. Now, with my last minute, I just want to encourage you to return to in-person meetings. The optics are really poor when you continue to meet virtually while requiring employees to work in person, even when their work is virtual. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Anthony Tillman, individual, back to school.
Hello, how you doing? First of all, I just want to say, as a proud PG County Public School alumni, I'm very disappointed in all of you, except the new board member, because I don't know who she is because she never introduced herself. But everyone else, I'm truly disappointed in all of you because here we are less than 30 days away from school and you guys cannot act professionally in a public setting. This is truly disappointing to me because you represent Prince George's County Public Schools and everybody look to us to lead the way for our youth. And it's very disappointing to me that we cannot have a professional board meeting and things are heading this way. I really would like for all of you to go to a retreat, go on vacation, just kind of spend some time with each other and get to know each other because you are representing us. And right now, you're not representing us effectively. So with school being 30 days away, and we have a /parliamentarian/lawyer and a whole bunch of new people, I think you guys should just take this time to just take a breather and let's get back on track. Monica, Dr. Golson is doing an excellent job, and I think we all would appreciate if you guys would just help her out and get some stuff done. So I'm not even going to take the rest of my 3 minutes because I said what I said, and I wish I could reclaim my time that I lost listening to you for the past 15, 20 minutes. Bye.
Thank you. Next is Aaron Lavalley, individual, conduct and ethics issues. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Aaron Lavalley.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready. There we go. Yes, this is Aaron LaValle. I'm a parent of 2 children that are currently in elementary school, one going into the 4th grade, one going into kindergarten, and a third who will be joining shortly thereafter. I'm on my 2nd stint as a PTO member in my community school. I'm just appalled. I moved into this county in 2010 in the era of Jack Johnson. And I got to say, if he ran a boot camp today on how to hold a county seat, some of you would be graduating at the top of the class. I purchased a home in this county with the calculation that many people who look like me did, which was the houses are cheap. And if I need to, I can send my kid to private school. I'm glad I did not make that decision. I love my community school. I love Glenarden Woods where my eldest daughter goes. But I got to say, this is absolutely disgusting because the games that are happening here are at the expense of my daughters and my son who will be in the county school system. This is completely unacceptable. You know, somebody mentioned earlier the experience of the board members in the 5 years, but it's over that exact time frame that there's been one common variable, and the individual just need to look into the mirror. Whether it's the antics behind the scenes and closed doors to the dysfunction today, there's been one constant throughout this whole thing. I've been to a couple of these board meetings. I drive way out to the Upper Marlboro where you guys are located, and it's just the same garbage over and over again over that time. And so I'll leave with this. If the argument that the voters casted votes, that's cute. But you know what? If the voters casted votes was enough, then Andrew Cuomo would be governor of New York today. Al Franken and another so-called progressive would be senator of Minnesota. But the reality is the only thing progressive about these individuals, these games, are that it's getting progressively worse. And those of us who have children in these schools, and again, I have 2, which is probably 2 more than the board members combined, it's unacceptable. You are playing with our children's futures here. You can do better. We expect better. Clean it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Diaz Granados, individual scholars
She's
board.
not present.
She's not. Okay. Next, Mr. David Kahn, Citizens for an Elected Board, co-chair, the Board of Education. Is Mr. Kahn in the waiting room?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. When Rashawn Baker ran for county executive, he promised to keep his hands off the school board, but he lied. When Angela Alsobrooks ran for county executive, she said she favored a return to an all-elected school board, noting that the presence of appointed members had not improved educational outcomes. She lied too, or at least she changed her mind after she found she enjoyed holding supreme power over educational governance. I'm tired of being lied to by politicians who think they know better than the people of Prince George's how our children should be educated. People who think we are smart enough to vote for them, but not smart enough to vote for those who run for our schools are hypocrites at best and racists at worst. As a majority minority county, we are the only jurisdiction in Maryland where voters once had 100% control of education and had it taken away by the politicians. Do you think they could have gotten away with that in a majority white county? Since Baker's coup in 2013, the infamous HB 1107 that created the hybrid board, independents have been elected to the school board in increasing numbers. Despite electoral opposition from candidates supported by powerful politicians, their message and positions resonated with the people so strongly all across the county that they now constitute a majority of the full board. Unlike our county executives, they are keeping their campaign promises, and that is what they are being punished for. The politicians are trying to accomplish what they could not do at the ballot box and restore their control over the school board by undoing elections and disenfranchising more than 3/4 of the population of our county. If they can kick independent members off the board, those seats would be filled by political appointees, thus giving control back to the politicians. This cannot be allowed to happen. The people are too important to be treated so shabbily. I could go on here and tell you how the ethics panel was stacked against the independents or how the charges against them, even if true, did not violate policy or the law, but that is not the important thing here. What is important is that this is an end run around democracy, and we cannot allow it to succeed. Thank you, and with the chair's permission, I will submit a written comment of my testimony for the record.
Thank you. The next spokesperson will be Shivali Shaw, individual board member's blackface photo of his female colleagues.
Ms. Shaw is also not in the attendee list.
Thank you. Next, Michelle Clark, individual special education staffing plan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I'm sorry, I might have a few technical difficulties. I'm actually on vacation in the Great Smokies right now, but I felt it was important to come and address you guys today as I see the staffing for special education is before the board on this particular agenda. And as per usual, some of the numbers are not as great as we would like. We've been working on staffing with representatives from the administration for the past couple of years. I can still tell you that many of our specialists, especially speech language pathologists, school psychologists, physical therapists and occupational therapists still have entirely too high of a caseload for them to efficiently meet the needs of our students. Since we're trying to meet their individual needs, we need to make sure that there is enough staff to handle that. I'm looking forward to coming into this next school year, and I hope that our numbers go back to what we've traditionally had. Last year, our numbers were very low, and I look forward to seeing my students. I want to make sure that everything is safe, though, more so for them than for me, because I've been fully vaccinated and have been for months. But during ESY summer school, we had to close down a couple of different classrooms because children got sick. And where in the past you would say, oh, it's just a cold, it's no big deal, maybe it's the flu. Now it's all COVID type symptoms. So please be aware that that will be going on again throughout the year. And as far as all the ethics stuff, I agree with the last speaker. An end run around the hybrid board is to get rid of all the elected officials and replace them with appointed officials. I looked at everybody's election campaign contributions. And from what I can see, the only ones that everybody had in common was the unions. So to me, this is a form of union busting. If that's what you're saying is quid pro quo, because we don't directly get money from the school board. You do approve our contracts, but we don't get direct contracts with you for specific things. So please note that there's a lot going on. I wish you guys would get together and figure out how to work together to meet the needs of our students and our teachers and other staff members in the county. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Next is Donna Goodman, Individual Administration.
Ms. Goodman was not in the attendees list either.
Next will be Martin Diggs, ACE, AFS, CME, Local 2250, Professionalism.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I guess you guys have been tired of being called unprofessional, huh? Because I can tell you that I'm definitely tired of hearing it as well, but I'm not trying to come to anyone from a position of being negative, not trying to be hostile to anyone at all. I understand that you all can have your disagreements. I mean, that's gonna happen, but those types of disagreements need to happen behind closed doors, not in front of those elected individuals who elected you to be in place to put forth policy and procedures to make for the betterment of all of our students and staff. I'm concerned that we're not focused on the business that makes us great. For example, Local 2250 has had 2 appeals in that you all have not been able to look at yet. One is surrounding the security personnel. If you think it's already rough that people are dealing with anxiety and issues going back to this new normal, think about next year when security personnel are supposed to be reduced. How's our schools gonna look safe in that situation? Also, when you look at the before and after care program has been dissolved. Now, many of those employees were placed in jobs, and that's not the point. But the services that they gave to the parents that allowed them to drop their students off early or even stay late, it's totally gone. Now, I don't know if you all know about that because the appeals have been put on hold. Now, some of these decisions or this internal fighting, it creates a domino effect. Now, many of you all can remember a few years ago when a lot of parents was contacting you all and other individuals in schools about the buses picking up individuals late. Don't know where the buses are, why are they late? Something needs to be done. Well, in that situation, we were working with 100 bus drivers shortages. Going into this year, PG County has a shortage of 270 bus drivers. Now, what is that going to look like when school starts back? Now, I know that we can all agree that the reasons that we're here, we're supposed to come with some positive solutions on how to make things better. And lastly, I have reached out to many of the board members, all of you board members, in hopes to collaborate on some positive effort so that we can work on some projects that can bring forth the betterment to our students and staff. And I've only heard from 4 board members. Please remember that your constituents are holding you all accountable. We expect you all to focus in on the betterment of our students and staff and pay attention to the business that pays us. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you all that have remained silent to this point. And I do agree with Donna Christie. If we don't pay attention, the only casualties that we're gonna have is gonna be our students going back into schools. Thank you.
Thank you. I just received a text that Donna Goodman or Donna Young is in the audience. Ms. Berkeley, do you see Donna Young? Who's to speak on individual administration?
Every time I type in Donna, the only Donna coming up is Donna Christie, and she's already spoken.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next will be Teresa Martin, individual budget operations.
Good evening, members of the board and administration. My name is Teresa Martin. I grew up in Hyattsville and returned to raise my children. I'm going to introduce myself in much the same way I have in many of the letters I've sent to this board and administration over the last decade. I'm speaking as the daughter of a retired PGCPS teacher who taught and coached students for 40 years. I'm speaking as a former PGCPS student. I'm speaking as an educator. And today, I'm speaking as the parent of 2 children, a rising 6th grader and rising 8th grader who up until last week were PGCPS students. Over the 8 years my children have attended PGCPS schools, we have been advocates for adequate facilities for students and staff. On the cusp of a new Hyattsville Middle School building that my daughter would never get to use and that my son might have had 1 year in, we have made the incredibly difficult decision to move out of the community that we love. Even with everything we've become accustomed to dealing with, our family could not take the uncertainty around the swing space plan during the construction of HMS, and we will be moving out of county. As you are aware, the current plan places students at 3 locations, creating the need for a dozen additional teachers and many additional bus routes. I cannot imagine you considered the financial toll this decision would place on the school system at large or the educational and emotional toll that this would take on students and families. It only takes a quick glance at the headlines to realize the struggle to find teachers and bus drivers to fill a much widened gap in the short time left before the start of school. Schools are nothing if students cannot get to them and if no one is there to teach them when they arrive. When bus issues cause families to worry daily about how to get their children to school without transportation or while working, it is not, quote, one PGCPS. We are only one PGCPS when there's equity between school communities. We're used to students and teachers in neighborhood schools having to make do with less than ideal conditions. But what you're asking of this school with the incredible level of uncertainty and a potential mid-year move for some students is too much. I'm glad to see the capital improvement plan on tonight's agenda. Working on long-term vision and planning for facilities replacement should be a priority for this board, but working on the needs of affected students in the meantime does not seem to be on your agenda. In fact, the last school board meeting didn't discuss recruitment efforts for teachers and bus drivers. There's no discussion that HMS is only part of the first round of schools that will need extensive swing space as crumbling buildings are rebuilt, or that PGCPS has no long-term plan to address the swing space problem over the next decade. It does appear that one board member had time to create a crying Jordan meme about his board colleagues. When there are issues as pressing as what the HMS community is facing, when what families really need are assurances that there will be enough teachers and bus drivers and that people are putting in the work to make it happen, those distractions are even more offensive. No, observing the board that night and again tonight, caught up in the procedural chaos over whether to send the ethics committee recommendations to the state when as subjects of the recommendation, nearly half of the board members' votes may or may not count, it becomes extraordinarily clear. The cavalry's not coming for our kids. They're too busy fighting legal battles and each other. Every student, every teacher in this community deserves better. I urge you to put that betterment and some real equity back on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I only have the 15 names in there. Are there any other, we can take 2 more since 2 people did not sign.
I'm hearing Mr. Goodman is still trying to get through, you guys.
Yes, I'm getting the same thing. Is it D Young, Miss D Young?
I don't know. I just asked her to send me the phone number, but I keep getting texts.
Yeah, I am too. So Ms. Young, are you out there? If not, can we move on to this? Berkeley, there were 17 names submitted and we cut it off at 15. Do you have the additional names?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I don't either.
Point of order, the 2 names are on board docs.
Do you have them? They're not on my.
Yes, ma'am. If you would like me to, I can read out this name.
Would you please?
Well, For clarification, those people were called and told that they could not speak because we went over the 15 participant limit, registration limit. So, I mean, I can look for them, but they were called and told that they would not be speaking this evening, per my directive.
Would they be able to speak?
That would be completely up to you, Madam Chair.
I'm saying if they're in the audience, will they
Sure,
have
I can-
capacity?
I can pull.
Okay, well, Ms. Ahmed, Board Member Ahmed, would you call the names?
Yes, Suzanne Johnson, Individual Literacy and AAC Work Plan.
She's in the queue. I can pull her.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'd like to commend the PGCPS CEO and her team and their focus on our students and staff through this unprecedented pandemic. How different would things be if our students and staff were the focus of our Board of Education leadership? Unfortunately, the focus has been on contracts and staff to support the board itself, which represents about 1/100% of the PGCPS budget. Elections hold 9 of our 13 board members accountable to the residents of our county. And so instead of attempting to usurp the voters' authority in their choice of representation, the Board of Education must focus on overseeing the safe return to school buildings, addressing the astounding mental health issues, closing the literacy gap, and other systematic education gaps that have only widened with the pandemic. Today, I want to shine a light on literacy and hope to ignite some passion around improving the education of our students. I'm encouraged in seeing that the Academic Achievement Committee work plan's focus is on literacy and special needs. According to the 2019 MCAP ELA data, pre-pandemic, only 27.7% of PGCPS third graders met or exceeded expectations for ELA standards. Looking at socioeconomic differences, 51% of the white students met or exceeded expectation versus 29% of African American, 20% of Hispanic, and 22% of farm students. This data makes it clear that our approach to reading instruction is having an especially devastating impact on our Black, Latinx, and economically disadvantaged students. The science of reading evidence demonstrates that skilled reading requires language comprehension and word recognition. Language comprehension is based on components such as vocabulary, background knowledge, and verbal reasoning, which can be built across subject areas. So I'm happy to see that the committee will take a deep dive into explicit vocabulary instruction and literacy gaps, our literacy across subject areas. However, there also needs to be a deep dive into the other piece of skilled reading, which is word recognition, and it's based on components such as phonological awareness and decoding. Structured literacy methods that explicitly teach systematic word identification and decoding strategies are beneficial for all students and vital for those with dyslexia or other reading difficulties. Evidence-based universal screening, early intervention, and ongoing effective measurements of word recognition skills is essential for overcoming this literacy gap. Developmental reading assessments, or DRA scores that everyone might be familiar with, and the traditional leveled readers that are used in our classrooms need to be replaced by evidence-based assessments of word recognition skills and decodable readers. When children are taught phonics, but do not master these skills because these leveled readers allow them to rely on cueing strategies, they can use context and memorizing a bunch of words that leads them to look like they're good readers. That is till they get to about third grade when their books begin to have more complex text and fewer pictures. Later interventions are much more costly and lead to our children falling further and further behind. Many, if not most students with word level reading and spelling problems will never be served through special education, but will be the responsibility of our general education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person, Board Member Ahmed.
Devon Davis, Individual Budget Operations.
I do not see him in the queue. I see some Davises, but not a Devon.
Do you see a D Young?
So Dr. Miller, Miss
Yes.
Goodman is, I'm sorry, let me take off mute. I had muted her. She's on my phone. She called on my phone. So if you don't mind, I can just let her talk through my phone.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Goodman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead. You can talk. They can hear you.
Thank you. I
Turn
apologize.
your video on.
My name is different, but thank you, Madam Chair, CEO, and board members. I wanted to talk today because of the procurement process. For most of you who do know me, you know that has been my area of expertise for years. And I am confused why board contracts are having so many issues. The procurement process is there for every department to follow, every department. And in regards to the attorney, you know, during the last meeting, there was a spreadsheet that had the attorney information and the top 2 attorneys. I'm not understanding why we still don't have an attorney, a board attorney, when the top scored attorney was eliminated because the RFP requirements were not met for financial integrity. Once he was eliminated, which that should have never gone forward to process for review for the board members that were reviewing, but since it did, once he was eliminated, why wasn't the second board attorney selected? The technical scores were very similar. I believe they were like a point or so off. The financial, which was also calculated incorrectly, but the financial information was similar in nature. The second company, Shipley, gave best value to the board. Does Prince George's County no longer look at the RFP requirements as a requirement? Or does they look at board contracts differently than all other contracts? Ethics of disqualification while participating as a vendor, a bid evaluator, a purchasing specialist, or even every board member who votes to award a contract must be first and foremost a priority. If we continue to have problems with all of these board contracts, not just with the union one, not just with the Pew Law Group, not just with the ones in Chair Miller's letter to our representative, are we going to ignore this as if, as someone said, this is Trump administration? We've really got to start doing our jobs as overseers of the money that is given to us for best value. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you, Belinda, for allowing me to get in.
Thank you. This concludes our public comment time. The testimony of commenters who registered and those who provided written or electronic testimony have been posted on board docs for review by board members and the public. Next, we will get into discussion items. First is the Board of Education's Standing Committee Work Plan. Colleagues, we will now hear from each of the board standing committee chairs regarding their 2021-22 work plan. First will be the Academic Achievement Committee, Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford.
Thank you so much. And how much time do I have, Dr. Miller?
5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes, okay.
Because your plans were posted on the board docs.
Okay, thank you so much. So I am really excited to share the AAC plan for this upcoming year. This plan got some input from our outgoing student board member, Ms. Nina Jackson, also from my colleague Curtis Valentine, and others who are interested in seeing specific items discussed by our committee. So one thing I just want to start off in saying is that, you know, countless studies have really shown that improved instructional practices combined with a very targeted literacy approach really are the cornerstones of improving student outcomes. And it really is at the core of culturally responsive teaching and learning. Literacy is really the gateway to all content area. And so I'm really excited to put forward this plan that will allow us to take a deep dive into literacy in the many facets of literacy within our school system. As we know, when we come back to school this year, it's going to be important for us to not only try to remediate some of the learning that has been lost, but to accelerate students forward. And so I'm really hoping, and I know that we'll have some great discussions and look into some of the processes that we're focusing on around literacy to move all students forward. We also know that special education is a major pain point in our PGCPS community, in that we have a large amount of students that are within our special education program, and many families want to know what we're doing well and areas that we can improve. And so I'm looking forward to working closely with my colleagues and the administration to dig deep and really understand sort of how our special education program functions, and again, areas of strength and areas of growth. And so it's really truly my belief that if we put the students that are in need of most support at the center of our focus, then we will improve outcomes for everyone. And so I hope to dive deep into some of these topics, including literacy in, as one of our callers called in, thinking specifically about vocabulary instruction, thinking about our special education identification program, thinking about literacy across different disciplines, also then thinking about our progress on the English language learner goals that we had last year, and also thinking about how we can support teachers in growing, also in thinking about how we can support teachers in growing our pipeline to have high quality teachers from diverse backgrounds in front of our students. And so my goal is that we will have meetings that go deep into literacy and special education, 2 meetings per month, that will give us an opportunity to focus more intently on a smaller amount of topics, but along a common theme. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues, and I want to thank them for their input. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee Chair Belinda Queen, Board Member Belinda Queen.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you so very much. Good evening to everyone, to our colleagues, and especially to our constituents and staff. I am the new chair of the Operation and Budget Committee. Our vice chair is Mr. Harris, Board Member Harris, and we are excited about this year, and the whole committee as a whole, all of our board members and our staff are excited about the work plan. I hope many of you were able to tune in to us last night as we had our first meeting of the year, which was very interesting. And if you was tuning in last night, you would have noticed that our committee meeting was nothing like this meeting. It was so relaxful and so enjoyable, a lot of laughter, and we were getting a lot done. And so I'm very proud to say, as a budget committee this year, we will continue to do that. As it was stated by our Madam Chair, that our work plan is on Board Docs. You can take a look at the work plan. If you have any comments, any questions, or any concerns, please feel free to email me or call me anytime. You all know I am available 24/7. I will definitely, if I don't answer, I will call you back, or I will reply back to your emails. I answer my own personal emails. I don't have a secretary. I answer my own emails. So I do read each and every email that is sent to me, believe it or not. Sometimes I do not apply, because sometimes some things at times it's better not to say anything than to say something wrong, but I do read my email. So I just want to say that. But also, I just want to also let you know, please check our website also, because part of this, and this is going to be done before our next month meeting, we do have a survey is out as we go into our budget moment and our CIP and operation budget for 2021-2023 year. We want to know how you feel. And this is the budget committee that's going in this year. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that each and every board member is making positive decisions, the decisions of our constituents, the decisions of our staff and of our scholars. So it's not when we go into a budget and we've asked for the board members to say, hey, what is your top budget priorities? We want to make sure that our priorities are your priorities, that when we hear you come and you speak at these budget meetings, we don't just want to hear it. We want you to know that we're listening to you. We have it on documents, and our decisions for our budget priorities priority will be your priority. So we ask that you please go fill the survey out. The survey is asking for what district you're in. So your board member will be able to see, hey, this is the concerns that your constituent have, and this is your constituents' top priorities. So this is what you really should be asking for is your top priorities. So we going on it as a different way. We know sometimes they hear from you out in the community, as I hear from a lot of you. Sometimes you call, email, and text, but we just want to make sure as a budget committee this year that we do everything we can to be fiscal responsible over tax dollars of our citizens, and we're representing you in a positive way. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. Next, Policy and Governance Committee, Board Member Edward Burrows, 3.
Thank you, colleagues. I want to note for the record that the Policy and Governance Committee voted to approve the 2021 to 2022 school year work plan, inclusive of the CEO's recommendations, the policy 8,000 and 9,000 policy series, as well as any unfinished policies from the last school year. That motion was passed and subsequent documentation was uploaded to Board Docs for review by the public. I will note that the policy committee has 4 new members, including myself. And so I think it's important that at our next policy governance committee meeting that we revisit the work plan to ensure that it has buy-in by all of the members. But so far we have a solid path. We'll start with reviewing the policies that have legal ramifications. And there's a list of them on Board Docs under component 1. And then we will also work on policies that are required based off the legislation that passed in the Maryland General Assembly this past 2021 legislative session. I look forward to working with the new members of the Policy and Governance Committee. Let me just pull up their names. Chairwoman Ahmed, Board Member Mickens Murray, our Student Board Member Sharon Ruiz, and Ms. Williams. And so like I said, 4 out of 5 of us are new to the committee. And so I'll have more once we convene the last week in August. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the consent agenda. Dr. Golson, would you please introduce items 5.1 through 5.6 for board consideration?
Yes, thank you. Items 5.1 through 5.6 requires board approval of proclamations commemorating National Day of Service and Remembrance, National Arts and Education Week, National Hispanic Heritage Month, Constitution Day and Week, Library Card Sign-Up Month, and a resolution for science kit adoption for grades 6, 7, and 8 textbooks. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept items 5.1 through 5.6 under the consent agenda?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? No discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Next, the budget consent agenda. Dr. Golson, please introduce item 6.1.
Thank you.
And 6.2.
Thank you. Item 6.1 and 6.2 requires board approval of the special education staffing plan for the state fiscal year 2020, 2022, and a recommendation for award of 2021-2022 Oracle ERP and SIS IT support consulting services contract.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Dr. Miller, this is Board Member Valentine.
Yes.
Dr. Golson, can you talk about how this report particularly was created and who contributed to it?
I assume you're referring to the special education report?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. I've asked Chanel Bowman to join us for the meeting. So Ms. Bowman, can you please?
Good evening, everyone. So I would like to point to your attention that we do have a staffing committee. If you refer to page 8 of the document, You'll see the list of staff and committee members. They consist of different level principals, elementary, special school principals. You'll see members from our budget management services, our special education, business operations staff. We have representation from human resources, central office team members, as well as community members. So they do contribute to recommendations of our staffing plan that we're presenting tonight.
Any further discussion? May I have a motion to accept the recommendations for the special recommendation for the proclamation to for special education staffing plan for state fiscal year 2022, and for the recommendation for the award of the 2021-2022 of Oracle ERP and SIS IT support consulting services contract.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, we did that. We had, I believe, Mrs. Williams, and then there was a second from Mr. Montero.
Okay, then, and then we had discussion. The student member cannot vote on budget consent agenda. Therefore, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Burrows.
You abstaining?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other abstentions? With that, with one abstention and one student member unable to vote, the motion carries with 12 votes. So the motion passes. New business, first reader. Dr. Golson, please introduce item 7.1 for board consideration.
Item 7.1 requires board approval of the fiscal year 2023 through 2028 capital improvement program as a first reader.
May I have a motion to accept item 7.1 under new business, first reader?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Board Member Ahmed?
Thank you. Colleagues, I just wanted to explain my vote for this one. I will not be voting for this item as a first reader, and it's for the same reason that I did not vote for it as a first reader last year. And that is just because this motion is to, as a first reader, to look at the fiscal year 2023 to 2028 capital improvement program. But what is on board docs is an overview of what is being asked for us to approve and not the full documentation. I know that last year the superintendent provided some explanation as for why, but I am not comfortable voting for this item as a first reader if I haven't seen the full document. So this is just an explanation of my vote for y'all and also for the public. Thank you.
We have no problem providing the full document again to you, just like we did last year.
Board Member Adam Stafford.
Yes, thank you. I just had a quick question, and this is just very specific. I wanted to know, with the money that's set aside for stadium upgrades, does that also include like just outdoor facilities for schools? I know that schools in my district have asked specifically about like outdoor tennis courts or basketball areas that they wanted to have upgraded, and I wasn't clear if that was also included with the stadium set
No.
aside there.
Stadium is, no, it's not, it's separate.
Okay, so stadium is more like football stadium. Okay, thank you.
Football, soccer, it's more than just football, but football, soccer, lacrosse.
Okay,
Sometimes our fields are used for multiple purposes.
Okay.
Are you ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
One,
No.
two,
No.
oppose, three, oppose.
Madam Chair,
Roll
maybe we
call.
should call the roll.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Adam Stafford,
Aye.
Mrs. Ahmed,
No.
Ms. Boozer Strother,
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr.
No.
Thank you. Miss Saran Ruiz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Abstain.
Mrs. Mickens Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Montero,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
No.
Mrs. Queen, Mrs. Queen,
I'm sorry, I said aye.
thank you. Mr. Thomas,
Aye.
can you repeat your vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Dr. Miller,
Aye.
10 ayes, 3 nays, 1 abstention.
The motion carries to approve the capital improvement program for first reader. There are no items for non-consent. So we'll move to 9.0, follow-up. Colleagues, follow-up items from previous board meetings are posted on board docs for your review. Next, we will move to the motion to confirm actions taken in executive session.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just a reminder, we decided that we would go back into executive session.
oh, well, then we won't do that then. Then may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting to go back into executive session?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting so we can go back into it.
Second.
It has been moved in second to go back into executive session. Roll call, Ms. Berkeley, please. All in favor, well,
Can you please repeat who seconded that vote?
I can second it. Kenny, or
Thank you.
Board Member Harris.
Roll call, yes. Mrs. Adam Stafford,
Aye.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Aye.
Ms. Boozer Strother,
Yes.
Mr. Burrows,
Aye.
Mr. Saran Ruiz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mrs. Mickens Murray,
Aye, if you call my name.
Mr. Montero,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Queen,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Mr. Valentine,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
and Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, Ms. Williams, you will have to read the statement to go back into executive session.
No, that's not necessary. We just return until we
Okay.
end the meeting. We're still under the same statement.
Okay, thank you. With
And we
that,
will be using the same link as previous.
for the, okay.
Right to our public though.
I've been asked to publicly state our reason for going back into executive session. And for the sake of the public, we had some unfinished business relative to a discussion on our legal counsel. So that we have to conclude or return to. With that, we will move into executive session.
Can I just make a request that we take a 10-minute break so folks can get something to eat and we've been going since 5. Folks may want to just use the bathroom, get something to eat really quickly so we could reconvene at 9:10.
Since we have to vote on everything, is everybody in agreement with that?
There's only 3 of us here. Yeah.
I don't want to be accused of unilaterally making a decision for everybody.
We jump into exec session and we.
Yeah, we'll go to the exec session and talk about it.
Let's do
Okay.
that. If it's amenable to you, Madam Chair,
Yes, it's amenable to me.
let's do it.